A clash of titans that shaped the fate of the world as we know it. While leaders plotted strategies in boardrooms, unknown heroes faced the terror of churning seas, where every wave conceals a deadly peril. German submarines cut through the waters of the Atlantic, defying all and sundry. But what happened when the hunters became the hunted? Uncover the truth behind the scenes of this epic battle. Subscribe now to General Jack's channel and don't miss a single detail of this saga. Click the like button and enable notifications to join us on this thrilling journey. The fate of the world hangs in the balance. Don't miss out on being a part of it. In March 1943, Donitz submarines were on a full-scale attack, wreaking havoc. They sank 108 Allied ships that month alone, leaving authorities in panic. There was a growing fear that a German victory in the Atlantic was becoming a frightening possibility. If the Allies lost control of the Atlantic, Britain would be in serious trouble, with the outcome of the war at stake. But in May 1943, something unexpected happened. The submarines, once ruthless hunters, returned home defeated, limping. In just 2 months, everything changed drastically. How was this possible? How did the hunters become the prey so quickly? Since 1939, German submarines had been a constant threat to Allied ships. Under Admiral Donitz's command, they aimed to wage a true war of attrition against British merchant ships. The goal was simple: to sink enough to weaken British military capabilities or even force London's surrender. Initially, the Germans were successful. The summer of 1940 was dubbed the happy time, when submarines easily attacked, sinking hundreds of isolated merchant ships. When the United States entered the war in 1942, the number of sinkings increased dramatically. Submarine crews celebrated this period as the second happy moment or even as the American shooting season. However, for Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister, control of the Atlantic was crucial. By the end of 1942, it was one of the few areas where Germany still maintained the offensive, posing a significant threat to the war's outcome. But something changed, and the German submarines, once masters of the seas, became targets within months. What would have caused this surprising turnaround? Mystery hung in the air as the battle for the Atlantic continued to unfold with increasing intensity. November 1942 was a month of terror on the seas, marked by the frightening peak of submarine attacks. German submarines, cruel villains of the war, sank 768,000 gross tons of Allied ships. Chaos reigned, and Churchill, aware of the gravity of the situation, clamored for more support from his allies. Amidst the despair, Churchill made a crucial decision: to establish new guidelines to distinguish between Allied and enemy submarines. Allied submarines, noble defenders, would be called submersibles, reserving the term submarines for the cowardly villains that plagued the seas. At the Casablanca Allied Conference in January 1943, American leaders agreed to prioritize the Atlantic, postponing the long-awaited invasion of France and Germany to 1944. Although some commanders were reluctant, they understood the impossibility of launching an invasion with the constant threat of German submarines. Despite promises of more support from the US, problems persisted. The search for scarce resources and internal competition among the Allies further complicated the situation. Meanwhile, Donitz, the master of submarines, strengthened his fleet like never before. In 1939, Donitz had only 39 submarines in his fleet. But by early 1943, that number had increased to about 300, with more under construction. When Grand Admiral Erich Raeder resigned as Commander-in-Chief of the Navy in January 1943, Hitler did not hesitate to promote Donitz to the highest position in the Navy, further consolidating his power over the seas. The stage was set for an epic battle, where every move would decide the fate of the ships and lives crossing the oceans. In the treacherous waters of the Atlantic, Hitler goads Donitz to maintain relentless pressure, defying the dangers that lie ahead on the horizon. In a radio broadcast, Donitz, aware of the harsh reality of submarine warfare, warns of even darker times ahead. With a master of submarines leading the German Navy, the Allies brace themselves to confront a growing threat. One of the most concerning areas is the Mid-Atlantic air gap, dubbed by sailors as a torpedo junction, where submarines find easy prey. In 1943, the Royal Canadian Navy massively expands its operations, providing crucial naval escort. However, the lack of air support leaves ships vulnerable, especially in the gap of up to 1,000 kilometers off Cape Farewell. Allied commanders strive to close this desperate gap, mobilizing escort carriers and long-range bombers like the B-24 Liberator. But, by January 1943, the British Coastal Command had only 6 VLR Liberators, most of which were allocated for offensive missions against Germany or in the Pacific. Meanwhile, in December 1941, the German naval intelligence decrypts British naval cipher number 3, providing a crucial advantage amidst the uncertainty and peril of the seas. The battle for supremacy in the Atlantic reaches a new level, where every move can be decisive for victory or defeat. As waters of the Atlantic roar with danger, German submarines move with precision, organizing group attacks against Allied convoys. Thanks to code decryption, they pinpoint about 70% of the convoys, turning the ocean into an unforgiving battleground. The depletion of Allied resources is evident, with the diversion of 125 destroyers and other escort ships for operations in North Africa and the Battle of Tunisia. As the Royal Navy divides its attention, North Atlantic convoys face fuel shortages, making them easy targets for enemy submarines. The result is devastating, a dramatic increase in shipwrecks, with 120 Allied vessels sunk in March 1943 alone, totaling 704,000 lost tons. The Atlantic becomes a bloody battleground, where each lost ship worsens the Allies' precarious situation. The rapid escalation of sunk tonnage, 74% more than the previous month, casts a shadow of crisis over Allied efforts. In a British memorandum, the urgency is clear: each sunken ship weakens our position. We can no longer rely on luck. It's time to face the submarine packs head-on and defend our convoys at all costs. A report dated December 1943 raises the possibility that victory in the Atlantic, and consequently, in the war as a whole, is at stake. However, subsequent analyses question this notion of crisis. While 2 specific convoys suffered disproportionate losses, with 22 merchant ships sunk out of a total of 90, the March crisis is now seen as an isolated case. In March, only 31% of convoys were attacked, a significant drop compared to the 52% attacked in November 1942. Furthermore, sinkings in the first quarter of 1943 were lower than in any quarter of 1942. The Allies are also building more ships than they are losing, with a net gain of 2 million gross tons by March 1943. Most intriguingly, there is no evidence in German sources to suggest that March was a moment of imminent victory. In fact, within just 2 months, German submarines were forced to withdraw from the Atlantic, defeated. As the battles of the March convoys intensify, the Allies gather at the Atlantic Convoy Conference to better coordinate their resources and standardize procedures. The main goal is to close the aerial gap in the middle of the Atlantic and take the fight directly to the submarines. The Commander-in-Chief of the Western approaches is optimistic. "I am truly hopeful that we can move from a defensive to a more offensive role to hunt them down." In early 1943, a series of tactical, technological, and military advancements occur almost simultaneously, changing the game of the battle in the Atlantic. Ultra-intelligence, unraveling the secrets of the German enigma, stands out as a powerful tool in the hands of the Allies, but it is not the only one, nor necessarily the most crucial. Ultra, while providing a general idea of submarine locations, has its limitations. Information can take up to 72 hours to decrypt, and the Germans often change their communications, leading to blackout periods, as seen in much of 1942. As the number of patrolling submarines increases, evading them becomes increasingly difficult, even with Ultra. In this scenario, another technology comes into play: underwater ASTIC sonar, crucial equipment for Allied escorts. It can detect submerged submarines, determining their position and direction. This not only alerts to the presence of submarines but also allows for more efficient use of anti-submarine weapons, such as Hedgehog and depth charges. Furthermore, more ships and aircraft are being equipped with the new 10-centimeter radar, capable of detecting submarines even when they are on the surface. These new technologies offer a crucial advantage, bringing more precision and effectiveness to the combat against German submarines. None of these tools are foolproof, but when they work together, they form an almost invincible defensive barrier. Submarine detection begins with ASTIC personnel picking up the sound signals indicating enemy presence. When they realize they're on the right track, it's time to act. Depth charges are dropped, creating a spectacular display of water and sound. In March 1943, aboard U-188, German submariner Anton Staller faces one of these attacks. The deafening sound of explosions reverberates as he focuses on his task, battling the fear threatening to overwhelm him. The uncertainty of what will come next hangs in the air as he wonders if he'll make it out of this situation alive. Meanwhile, the Allies develop a new weapon, HF/DF, or Huffduff. This technology can detect German submarine radio communications at a considerable distance, allowing escorts to track and attack them more effectively. It's a crucial step in keeping enemy submarines in check and ensuring the safety of maritime routes. The technology, already in existence since 1942, gets a new boost in 1943, becoming much more accessible. Now, at least 2 ships per convoy are equipped with HF/DF, providing a more effective defense against enemy submarines. Along with this, more powerful anti-submarine weapons arrive and troop organization improves. Previously, only 6 escorts were deemed sufficient to protect 24 merchant ships. However, civilian experts led by Professor PMS Blackett found that 8 escorts can protect 48 ships with the same effectiveness. This change allows for the formation of larger convoys, freeing escorts to become mobile support groups, ready to assist specific convoys under attack. Additionally, the increase in the number of long-range bombers and escort carriers is notable. In May, Coastal Command boasts 49 VLR bombers, a considerable jump from the 17 in February. These aircraft, such as the B-24 Liberators, Whitley bombers, and flying boats like the Sunderland and Catalina, become essential in hunting down enemy submarines, responsible for almost half of the losses. The combination of new tools and tactics is devastating for the submarine fleet. In April, the battle is balanced, with the Allies losing 39 merchant ships but sinking 15 submarines. However, it is May 1943 that becomes the decisive month, especially with the journey of convoy SC-130. Suspense hangs in the air as the battle intensifies, with the fate of the Atlantic hanging in the balance. The convoy, sailing from Halifax, Nova Scotia, towards Liverpool, is a valuable prey. With 37 merchant ships and 8 escorts, some equipped with cutting-edge technology, it's a tempting target for German submarines. Enemy intelligence tracks the convoy and gathers a considerable force of up to 25 submarines, divided into 3 attack groups. While the Donau 1 and 2 approach from the southeast, the Wolfpack killer is already positioned in the area. The submarine's plan is to strike the convoy at its most vulnerable point, but British intelligence, aware of this strategy, fails to relay the information to the escort commander. However, when the attack commences on May 18th, the escorts react swiftly, advancing towards the submarines and thwarting their assaults. Meanwhile, the convoy skillfully dodges the onslaughts. The battle soon becomes a race against time, with Allied aircraft rapidly closing in. The planes chase the submarines, forcing them to dive to avoid imminent destruction. On May 21st, faced with mounting pressure, the submarine command decides to abandon the attack. 3 submarines are sunk and another is damaged, but the Allies emerge unscathed. Amidst the chaos of the confrontation, a personal tragedy strikes at the heart of the German Navy. The U-954, one of the sunken submarines, carries Admiral Donit's youngest son, Paul, who perishes along with his crew. For the Kriegsmarine, May becomes a bleak month, with the loss of 41 submarines, nearly a quarter of its operational strength. Captain Lieutenant Peter Eric Kramer, from the U-boat headquarters, describes the situation as out of control, marking that period as the Black May. On May 24th, an urgent order reverberates through the German submariners' quarters: retreat from the Atlantic until better equipment and countermeasures are available. The tension in the air is palpable as sailors prepare to abandon the perilous waters. But why did things go south so rapidly for the submarines? The Allies certainly made advancements with their developments, but there were also crucial failures on the German side. Firstly, the lack of intelligence about enemy capabilities left them vulnerable. They had no idea how to evade or neutralize new technologies like high-frequency direction finding, radar, and Enigma decryption. Furthermore, Donit's strategy, which required constant radio reports before an attack, ended up backfiring. These constant communications made it easier for the Allies to track their positions. During the SC-130 battle, for instance, 104 HF/DF reports were crucial in locating the German submarines. The lack of reliable air cover was also a serious issue. Donitz demanded more support from Hermann Göring's Luftwaffe, but internal rivalries made it difficult to obtain necessary resources. Even with the increase in the number of submarines, the outcome wasn't proportional in terms of sinkings. The large number of submarines in operation still kept the Allies on high alert. The scenario is akin to a bear hunt, where a single skilled marksman is replaced by a crowd of less adept hunters. Even though the number of bears taken down per hunter is low, the total quantity of hunters increases the danger for the animals. The situation is tense and uncertain as German submarines withdraw, and the Atlantic becomes an unpredictable battleground. The decline in submarine performance and crew experience was evident. While in 1940, commanders had an average of 2 years of experience, by 1943, this time had drastically reduced to just 8 months. Many of the captains lost in May 1943 had only 1 or 2 patrols under their belt. At the war's outset, 2% of commanders were responsible for 30% of sinkings, but these aces were a dying breed, as most early war veterans had already vanished. Around 850 submarines, representing 3/4 of the fleet built and crewed during the conflict, never managed to sink a single Allied merchant ship. The decline is stark when you consider that in November 1940, the daily average tonnage sunk per submarine was 430 tons, while by January 1943, that number had plummeted to 65 tons. The Atlantic, once a theater where Germany held sway, now saw its submarines in retreat. Donitz's decision to retreat was not permanent. He sought to accelerate the development of new submarine technologies and return to tactics of smaller groups, but the wolf packs would never regain their former effectiveness. Instead, the Atlantic became the logistical route for the Allied invasion of Europe. 2 years after the devastating Black May for the German submarine fleet, Donitz ascended to the post of head of state and supreme commander of the armed forces of Nazi Germany, following the tragic demise of Hitler and Goebbels during the Battle of Berlin, as the Red Army closed in on the heart of the city. As the political and military landscape in Europe shifted with the fall of the Nazi regime, the Atlantic theater knew no rest. Though German submarines were in retreat, dangers still loomed large. New Allied technologies, combined with enhanced tactics, made hunting submarines even more effective. Meanwhile, in Allied headquarters, strategies to ensure convoy safety and maintain pressure on the remaining Kriegsmarine forces were in full swing. The race for complete Atlantic dominance was far from over, and every move was crucial to ensuring success in future military operations. Deep beneath the ocean surface, the remaining submarines of Nazi Germany struggled to survive constant ambushes and increasingly sophisticated Allied tactics. Each mission was a battle for survival, and each submarine carried with it the weight of its nation's hope. As events in the Atlantic unfolded, the world's eyes turned to the uncertain future of post-war Europe. The story was far from over, and the challenges awaiting the Allies were as formidable as the seas that divided continents. The fate of the world was being shaped not only by political leaders and generals but also by the brave men and women facing the perils of the sea in a battle that would shape the course of history. As tumultuous waters of the Atlantic tested the courage and determination of sailors, the course of the war was decided with each engagement. The challenges were immense, but the Allies' resolve remained unshakable. With every victory, they advanced toward the long-awaited freedom and peace. In the hearts and minds of soldiers, sailors, and airmen, the flame of hope burned, fueled by the desire for a better world. There were still battles to be fought, sacrifices to be made, and challenges to be overcome, but the promise of a brighter future kept alive the will to keep fighting. As the war unfolded on land, sea, and air, the outlines of a new world began to emerge on the horizon. A world shaped by the lessons learned amidst the chaos of battle and the determination to build a fairer and more peaceful future for generations to come. Join us on this journey through the tumultuous seas of military history. Subscribe to General Jack's channel and don't miss any exciting war stories. Click the like button and turn on notifications to stay updated on each episode, where we'll share the most remarkable accounts and the deepest lessons history has to offer. Come be part of this community of learning and reflection. Together, we'll explore the events that shaped the destiny of the world.